Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, Executive Editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with another in our occasional series of box sets which still exist for one reason or another. There is no rhyme or reason for why these things stay in print or go out of print, but this one that I discovered is still kicking around there is the Colin Davis Symphonies box. Now, this is a collection, it's on Decca, of obviously, symphonies conducted by Colin Davis, but of course it's not complete because that would have made life far too simple. As always in these sets, what goes in and what comes out seems to be rather random. However, this particular set has some really good stuff in it. And I'm going to tell you what it is, and we're going to get through this rather quickly because these are very well-known performances, and there really isn't a lot that needs to be said about them other than the fact that, yes, they still exist, which means that if you want them, you can have them. So where do we begin? The Beethoven cycle with the Staatskapelle Dresden. Now, Davis's late Beethoven cycle is very beautiful. The fact of the matter is anything with the Staatskapelle Dresden is very beautiful. They're such a great orchestra that you could listen to them play, a Yankee Doodle, and it would be thrilling. I mean, they just sound marvelous. And these symphonies are beautiful performances, very well recorded. They, however, do not have quite the fire of Davis's earlier Beethoven symphonies, the ones he did with the London Symphony or the BBC or whatever they were, the ones that he did in the UK. And then, of course, there was that great version of the Ninth with the Bavarian Radio Symphony Orchestra in Munich, which I think is quite special. I think it's one of the great versions of that particular work. And these are not quite as good. They are more, shall we say, magisterial, which is putting the nice spin on it. The less charitable spin on it would be to say that they're a little bit dull. And I was just unfortunate because I was really looking forward to this because, of course, Davis is a fine Beethoven conductor and he remains a fine Beethoven conductor. But this is not the best of his Beethoven, but of course, it's certainly not bad. And that's what really matters. Next, we get Berlioz, the Symphonie Fantastique, Roman Carnival Overture, and the Corsair. Oh, now this is where things get a little strange because Davis did lots and lots of Berlioz. I don't think he ever quite wrapped his brain around the Symphonie Fantastique. This is the London Symphony version, the earlier one. He remade it with the Concertgebouw, and that was widely regarded as an absolutely fabulous definitive reference recording. I went with that for a long time because Gramophone told me I had to. But once I developed a certain independence of mind, I realized that the sound was a bit dry and the performance, again, just a touch sleepy. However handsomely played it was by the Concertgebouw. And then, of course, he redid it with the LSO as part of the LSO label, so who knows how many of these things there are floating around. I actually like this earlier version simply because it has a little bit more edge than the Concertgebouw version. And that's just me. Like I said, I just don't think, for all of his love of Berlioz and all the fabulous stuff he did with Berlioz, that this was Davis's forte, this particular work. But what really teased me off is that this is the symphony box. Harold in Italy is a symphony, and it's not here. Romeo and Juliet is a symphonie dramatique, and it's not here. And not only that, but he did several Romeo and Juliets. So it would have been a perfect opportunity, for example, to stick in the digital one he did, the late one, with the Vienna Philharmonic that got no play whatsoever. In fact, I need to tell you about that Romeo and Juliet, because when it came out, I was very interested to hear it, because I thought his first one with the LSO could have been improved on a little bit, and I was very excited, and I spoke to the Philips rep back in those days. There were three major labels that were all under the Universal or Polygram, whatever they were in those days, Polygram umbrella, Deutsche Grammophon, Philips, and Decca. And they each had their own PR people, full-time PR people, who handled each label independently. Each label had a label manager. There was a whole hierarchy for each one of them. And I wanted that Romeo and Juliet. And I got a copy, a promo copy, and I reviewed it. And I said it was very interesting. And I did a comparison review. I think it was in Fanfare at the time. And I spoke to the rep and said, see, I did the review. Isn't that great? She said, I got yelled at for promoting it. I said, what do you mean you got yelled at for promoting it? She said, well, it wasn't the priority that month. The priority that month was probably something like the Lebec sisters. Who knows? And I said to her, but you released it. I mean, you paid for it. What does it matter if it's not your priority? I wasn't going to touch your priority. I was going to do this. And we publicized it. Maybe you'll sell a couple. Who knows? That was the mentality at Polygram, at Polygram/Universal, the major labels. And it was one of the many things which, as I've been discussing, contributed to their demise, making recordings that they never had any intention of promoting. I guess it was what we used to call in the biz a contractual obligation album, because they had no intention of caring about it. I just find that astonishing. I really do. Okay, next, Dvorak, Symphonies 7, 8, and 9, Symphonic Variations, and the Serenade for Strings. Now, 7, 8, and 9 are with the Concertgebouw, and 7 is one of the all-time great ones. 9 is really, really great. 8 I find a little bit strange, especially in the slow movement. I don't know. There's something that's not quite together in that performance, and the other pieces are lovely. But for 7 and 9, oh baby, that's good stuff. It's really, really good stuff. And then we have all of Davis's Haydn. This is also with the Concertgebouw. These are gorgeous performances. His set of the London Symphonies was one of the reference versions of those for many, many, many years, and it still sounds just beautiful for the quality of the playing and the liveliness of the interpretations. You know, it's actually very funny. H.C. Robbins Landon, the great Haydn scholar, detested these performances because, of course, they didn't use his editions. They used the older editions, which he thought were, of course, textually corrupt, and so he hated them. He loved Karajan's versions, which I can't understand at all because I think they're just beyond dull, big and interesting in places, but basically dull. And so there you go. It's just another example of why criticism should be left to the critics, and musicology should be left mostly, I think, to the musicologists when they're not Brucknerites. Anyway, so that was that. And then we get Mendelssohn, the Italian Symphony and A Midsummer Night's Dream. Nice, good, solid performances, but not terribly special. And then Mozart. Oh, this is good stuff. I mean, Davis was a great Mozartian. Let's not kid ourselves. And these are the Staatskapelle Dresden versions of symphonies numbers 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 38, 39, 40, and 41. And they are as gorgeous as any versions that have ever been done by anybody. Now, these late ones did not make it into my ideal list of late Mozart symphonies, but that doesn't mean they couldn't have. I left them out because I knew I was going to talk about them now, and they are just amazing, absolutely amazing. Greatness, sheer greatness, fabulous all the way through. Schubert. Let's see, the Unfinished in Rosamunde, attractive, nice performance. Davis did the complete Schubert symphonies all over again, but that was on RCA. So I suppose that if you're really that interested in his Schubert, which is quite lovely, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it, very beautiful, smart, well done. You can get the RCA cycle, but this is you're not gonna complain because this is all very solid. Then we get Sibelius. The Seven Symphonies, Finlandia, Tapiola, and the Swan of Tuonela. I wish they had just stuffed in that tone poem album, the separate tone poem album that has, Pohjola's daughter in it, and on Saga, and there's other things, and then just finished it out. I mean, why be picky about it? I know they're not symphonies, but if you're going to have some tone poems, you might as well have all the tone poems. Anyway, this is Davis's Boston Cycle. It's the best thing he ever did in Sibelius, and one of the best cycles that anybody ever did in Sibelius. It's always been that way. It will always be that way, and so that's a terrific thing, too. Then finally, at the end here, we have Stravinsky, the Symphony in C and Symphony in 3 movements, and the Tchaikovsky Serenade for Strings. Now, the Tchaikovsky is lovely, and I guess they needed something to fill out the Stravinsky disc. Davis is a really good Stravinsky, too. Remember, he did the 3 ballets with the Concertgebouw, which seemed to be floating somewhere in nebulous nothingness. And he did some of the neoclassical ballets, and he always did a great Oedipus Rex. And I really think it would be kind of interesting for someone to put out a Colin Davis Stravinsky box if they could gather everything together somehow properly. But they're very good performances of the two symphonies as well. It's not music that requires a tremendous amount of interpretive acumen. Like most Stravinsky, you basically wind it up and let it go, but you have to let it go in the right way. I mean, that's the key, and Davis knows how to do it. So that's the box. And really quite a fine box, as I've suggested it is. The Haydn and the Mozart are reference versions. Two of the Dvořáks are reference versions. The Berlioz, not so much. The Beethoven, not so much, but still very good. I mean, it's all very good. That's the point. The Mendelssohn and Schubert, they're just sort of, they're one-off things. It doesn't make any difference. They're well done. They're not offensive. The Sibelius is fabulous. It's a good box. If it's a good box, if you can get it at the price, then, it's still out there, and you don't have these things, which, I know so many of you will, particularly the Sibelius cycle, but, and the Mozart performances. Probably most of you serious collectors have these things already, but for those of you who don't, of all these big boxes, and this one has, how many discs does it have? 28 CDs. I think the ratio of hits to misses is really, really high. And even the misses are like really near misses. You wouldn't even call them misses. They're more like, 90% misses. They're very, very good. They really are. Davis was just such a fine musician. And this box contains quite a bit of the best of him. So keep on listening, folks. Thanks for joining me. Take care.